So our next session is on cross-functional, title is Cross-Functional Strategic Process Improvement. Last session, you heard a lot about kind of individual behaviors and things like that require, a fair amount of self-reflection. The idea with this session is that it's paired up to think now a little bit more globally, organization-wide, and how some of those things can be applied. To do so, we have two speakers with us today, Brad Hollingworth and Melanie Rack. Brad is a professional engineer, I'll get there right, professional engineer, pursues his passion of making a difference through systematic approach to solving complex problems as a master black belt for the Hollingworth Consulting Company. He aims to inspire, lead, and teach others to do this themselves, transforming their organizations and their own lives. He's a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt and a registered professional engineer. And he's probably going to talk a little bit more. When I think engineer, I think one thing, and he's of a very different profession. 5-time Ironman triathlete too, so take that. He guides organizations through strategic planning and transformational initiatives, and he aspires to overcome obstacles, dream big, and live it. With them is Melanie Rack, and Melanie is the division manager of community contracts and residential services with the Cuyahoga County Board of DD. And she mentioned to me that she's kind of the second person to work with Brad and Cuyahoga's system to introduce some of these concepts within her department. She is an OU grad and got her master's from Cleveland State. So please join me in welcoming both Brad and Melanie.
Thank you, John. And as John mentioned, we had a great, Carrie did a great job just a few minutes ago talking about from an individual's perspective. I got it. And we're going to talk about teams, groups, organizations. Okay, so our objectives today, purpose and objectives, we want to discuss 4 key organizational leadership functions and understand the effects of Lean Six Sigma problem-solving methodology on them. So we're going to talk about breaking down silos. We're going to talk about team building. We're going to talk about change management. And we're also going to talk about cross-pollination, cross-function. We're going to do this through the lens of a success story at the Cuyahoga Development Disabilities. So I didn't know how to pronounce that county's name until I worked with them. It's Cuyahoga. So we're going to do this through the lens of a success story. Now, I don't expect you to read this brochure that you can find on their website. Simply want to set the scene for where did this story start. And you'll see at the top, you'll see Family Supports Program, and you'll see several pictures. And under those pictures, you might see some words like camp assistance, home modifications, respite care, special equipment, all kinds of stuff. Well, in the spring of 2022, which is just about a year ago, the situation was, well, it started with, it was taking weeks or months longer to order special equipment. And don't worry, I'm going to get into that. What is special equipment? But that was the situation. It was taking weeks or months longer than we expected to order this special equipment. Now, when we think about an organization, oftentimes there are many different stakeholders involved. It's more than just an individual or one person. So I am sure you can relate to some of these same stakeholders Imagine the individuals that are served and their families. Family Supports Program. The Northeast Ohio Network Council of Governments. The Cuyahoga DD, their therapists and staff. And then you have therapists and medical providers that may also be involved with this in the community. If you take a minute and think about that, think about their goals and their missions, their vision. Those might all be a little different, right? Those might all be a little different. So now we have these stakeholders. What's happening? What can happen here? We have these different stakeholders. So when we talk about special equipment, Melanie, can you share with us what does special equipment mean with this Family Supports Program? What does that entail?
So for our Family Supports Program, at the time that we started our work with Brad, we defined specialized equipment as adaptive equipment recommended by a therapist that meets a therapeutic outcome. And that's actually one of the most popular things that our folks with Family Supports funding would use their funding for. So a therapist comes in, does an assessment, recommends a piece of equipment that someone needs. And then as Brad mentioned, sometimes we were learning that it would take weeks and months for someone to get that needed piece of equipment.
Weeks or months. Okay. Frustration. Quick show of hands. Who has experienced frustration before? Anybody? Okay. Is there an easy way to quantify frustration? Is it the number of 4-letter words that are used? Is it the number of objects that are thrown against the wall? I don't know. I don't know a good way to quantify that, but to keep that in mind, because that's something we're going to talk about, quantifying things. So we have these different stakeholders that are all involved with that process of ordering special equipment. That creates some silos there. Well, the silos exist because there are different organizations in different departments, different divisions, different organizations. I need a volunteer. Who can tell me what they think a silo is? Any volunteers? What is a silo, or what does it do? Say it again. Okay. So we have a literal definition of a concrete building that stores grain. Okay. That's what I thought too. I grew up near one, so I understand what you're talking about. How about a figurative silo? Any ideas what that might be?
A separation of departments or agencies or anything that can make you more productive.
Oh, a separation of
Segregation.
segregation of departments and functions. Do things travel well through a silo? Oh, they don't, because it's like a concrete structure. And how often do you travel through a concrete structure? Okay, so we had these potential silos. Now the question is, well, how do we know we feel this problem, we have this frustration. How do we deal with the problem, and how do we break down these silos? Couple terms we want to introduce to you here. We did this through a Kaizen event using the Lean Six Sigma problem-solving methodology. Does anyone here speak Japanese? Did I see a hand? Oh, all right, awesome. Well, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this word. There's this word Kaizen, and in Japanese, Kaizen is a term for continuous improvement. Continuous improvement on working practices. Okay, so the way that we do work. If you think about an event is something that is scheduled. So what we call a Kaizen event is where we take time to that we schedule and set aside time to work on making an improvement, continuously improve our work practices. Oftentimes in our world, that's a 3 to 5 day event. And I can already feel the, wait a second, I'm already busy. How am I going to take 3 to 5 days to improve something? Where am I going to find 3 to 5 days? Well, what I would ask is, and I think I like this, there's this quote, I don't know who to attribute this quote to, but if there's not time to do it right the first time, when is there time to do it right? When is there time to fix it? So it's more like an investment. to free up time. So benefits of a Kaizen event approach. First of all, you had that commitment. Did anybody receive an email or a text message today that's work related? Okay, I should see everybody, probably can see everybody's hands up here. All right, so if you commit some time, it helps you free a little bit of time up for that from distractions so that you can focus. The second benefit is there's a facilitator. What's the definition of a facilitator? What's a facilitator? Any volunteers? Somebody be brave here. What's a facilitator?
Organizer.
Organizer, okay. I hear some other words. Oh, guide, okay. Somebody that maybe organizes an event, guides people through the steps. Oftentimes a facilitator can provide that outside perspective where they're unbiased. We heard about bias this morning with Sheila, or this morning with Acacia. We heard about bias. Okay. The other key with a Kaizen event is that the people who are stakeholders, they're involved in it. Okay. They're the ones that are the team members, and they're engaged because they're actually in the event. So Lean Six Sigma, 5-phase problem solving methodology, and it's really team-based problem solving. It's team-based. The define phase, first one, we identify the problem to solve. Then we get to the measure phase, which is where we quantify the state of the problem. How bad is it? How bad is that frustration? This morning, Acacia mentioned the scout bee. This is where we need to be that scout bee mindset. Is not to it's not to understand, or not to try to understand what we think it is or what we feel it is, but what is it actually? Okay, what is it? And the analyze phase is the third one. Well, what's causing the problem? And there again, that scout bee mindset is very important. Let's be objective and look and find out what's actually causing it. Fourth phase is the improve phase, where we develop and implement solutions. The fifth one is the control phase, where we develop processes and systems to sustain the improvements. So at the Cuyahoga DD, we set aside some role with the Kaizen event in Lean Six Sigma methodology. We have roles. Melanie was the team leader. And we had team members from those stakeholders, which included the supervisor and staff members from the family support program, the director of operations at Neon, as well as a staff member that was involved with these operations. Champion was Amber Gibbs. And what's important about a champion is that it's somebody from the organization who can say, this is an important problem for us to solve. And you can have some time and resources to do just that. What does a coach do? Any words for a coach? What a coach does? Advisor? Teach and encourage? All right. That was my role. And then we also had subject matter experts that we brought in for certain questions. In this case, there are therapists and staff that are saying, no, these individuals need this special equipment. So our purpose was to reduce the time to order equipment for the family supports program, with the impact of we're trying to meet people's needs faster and relieve their stress by simply simplifying the steps for those families and those ordering the equipment. So we had very clearly defined roles. We included people from those different silos. That helps with not just the engagement, but also breaking down those silos and making this cross-functional. Oh, one other thing I want to point out. I'll just go back to this slide. With the Lean Six Sigma methodology, for any of you that joined Sheila's talk this morning, she mentioned psychological safety. Okay, so not only did we bring this team together, but this was us, a designated safe space for people to share ideas, share new ideas, and have those ideas listen, for people to listen and understand those ideas. So that's a big key with that Lean Six Sigma methodology is that psychological safety. So frustration, really can't measure the number. I don't know, maybe we could measure the number of 4-letter words and the things thrown against a wall. We looked at the number of days it took to place an order. So what you'll see on this graph here is histogram. You can use this as whether you're a Microsoft environment, you can do this in Excel. If you're a Google environment, you can do this in Sheets. What we found was what was actually happening. Okay, we established a baseline and found what was actually happening. And it looked like it was taking an average of 17.6 days to place the order. How is that different than a feeling? Because we felt frustrated. How's that different than a feeling? Any ideas? Say it again. It's solid data. So that it's data, so it's a fact, right? All right, it's objective. So we might have felt like saying some different words or throwing different things, but it's a fact. It's an objective fact, and that's the thing that we have to be careful about when there are problems we're trying to solve, is those feelings. So that's that second phase of that Lean Six Sigma methodology, is to let's quantify it and let's be objective. Okay. The other thing I want to point out is the average of 17.6 days. What this chart will show you is that not every individual in their family experienced that. Some had theirs ordered much sooner. Some it took much longer. So just something to be aware of, that people rarely experience the average. So data is objective. The other thing too, it creates some awareness. Yeah, we've heard the 4-letter words. We've seen things thrown, seen things flying. But it really creates some awareness about the problem across all functions. The other thing it does, I don't know, I would think when I see this number, I would think it would create a desire to change. So we spent quite a bit of time and effort quantifying the time it took to place an order. So Melanie, what effect did this exercise have on team members?
A little bit of shock.
Oh,
A
shock.
little bit of surprise to see that 17-day plus average. And to Brad's point, seeing, we had the whole list in front of us. So we saw the days or the experiences that folks had where they took much longer. And when we thought about what brought us there, one thing I want to go back to, Brad, is when he talked about the 3 to 5 day commitment to, get everybody in the room, get all the perspectives, break down the silos. I remember my first conversation with Brad, and I think it was a bit of a negotiation. 5 days, I think our team's really good. I think we can do this in 3.5 or 4 days. And it took a lot of convincing to tell me why it took 5 days. And we were able to break that down into separating out like a day here and then off a couple weeks and then come back again. So that felt less overwhelming to us and really helped us, I think, commit to that time commitment in that process. But I just remember the negotiation as you were talking about that. But we were really surprised and we were disappointed. We're here to help people we serve. And our whole goal in doing this event, and I say this 20 times when I talk about this Kaizen event, is to get people what they need as quick as we can. We know that some of our processes are complicated. We talked about all the silos and people involved, and we know that things touch lots of hands. But still, we can't order a piece of equipment sooner than 17 days. I know we sat with that for a minute and had to think about it, and it really did motivate us to continue on with that event, to find everything we could to get that way down.
So it created the desire there to change.
It strengthened it. I think it brought out the competitiveness in us.
Oh, it brought up the competitive as well. So, yeah, so it brought up that it increased that desire to change. It increased that desire to change because we knew that we wanted to do better, but it really increased that once we knew what it was. So change. Quick show of hands. Who has rolled something new out, a new form, a new software, or anything, and then asked somebody to use it? Anybody? All right. Did everybody jump on board? Oh, they didn't? I don't understand. Why not? So everyone wants change as long as they don't have to do anything different than they did yesterday. Well, luckily, with change management, it's really about that framework to facilitate the people aspect of change. Software, yes, you can load it to, you can load it somewhere. Somebody can go to an address. But this is really the people side of it. And it all comes down to acceptance. So it doesn't matter if it's a new form, if it's a new software, whatever that might be, it all comes down to acceptance and people actually using it. The Lean Six Sigma methodology lines up very well with the ADKAR model of change management. So we've talked about the define and measure phase of our experience with this Kaizen event. And that define phase really helped build awareness of the change or the change needed. And then once we measured it and found, wow, it was taking 17 days to order this equipment, that really increased that desire to change. And what you're going to see is we're going to, as we get further into the story, what really increased the desire even more to change. And then some of that, some of the things that we used to have the knowledge for the change, the ability, and then the reinforcement. So in the analyze phase, this is our third phase of our problem-solving methodology. We're trying to find the root cause. So what is a root cause? Well, it's the fundamental reason for the occurrence of a problem. Has anyone, just a quick show of hands, has anybody shopped at Amazon before? How about Walmart? You know, so with those two places, they have everything you'll need. They'll solve all your problems, right? You can order, have it delivered to your house, or you can go to a 24/7 retail store, and they've got everything you need. Well, I kindly disagree. Because you have to understand what's causing your problem to know what you actually need. So that's a key phase here of the Lean Six Sigma methodologies. It helps us really understand what's causing it so that we know, gee, do we need to shop at Walmart? Do we need to shop at Amazon? Do we already have what we need at home or in our office for this? Some of the tools we use included the fishbone diagram, the 5 whys, and the scatter diagram. And some of the root causes we discovered were interesting. So we discovered that the form that was being used to request this equipment sometimes was missing information. Has anyone ever received a form with missing information? What do you have to do next? It's missing information. What do you have to do? Oh, you have to call. You have to go back to the person who filled it out and say, hey, what about this? All right, so is that easy? That's extra work. It takes time. No one likes doing it, so somebody has to do it. Also found that some of the hyperlinks in this form that we were receiving didn't work. Okay, who has typed in a 40-character web address before? Not fun. Not fun, and if you type like I do, you're more than likely going to get it wrong at least 3 or 4 times before you get it right. So I think those things, those root causes, I think people here kind of understand. We've got one other here listed called clinical review. So that's the part where we might need some clarification. Melanie, can you kind of help people understand, well, what was this clinical review that we found that was a root cause?
Sure, because we were requiring specialized equipment to be adaptive and to be not a typical toy that was meant for a person of that age. We were assuming that the staff person at Neon who was processing all of these requests understood what was adaptive, what was specialized, what was approved through our program. And if they weren't sure, they had questions, they would reach out to one of our therapy managers via email or place a phone call, maybe connect with them, maybe have to wait a little bit to have that person then review the form and see if it met our definition of specialized equipment and could be approved to be purchased.
Okay. So once we discover those root causes, then there's this other thing we have to be careful about, speculation or this perception or belief. We also wanted to validate those things were actually happening. So in this image, what you'll see here is this is a couple of our team members during our event. We're actually walking through the process itself. Now, the Japanese have a word for this. It's called gemba. Gemba means go to where the work is done and see it for yourself. So in that case, we can always assume what we think happens. In this case, we went to see it happen to verify those things were happening. So we got to see the links that didn't work. We were able to see the missing information on these request forms. We were able to see the email trails for these clinical reviews. That helped ensure and validate that, yes, these were the root causes. If we address these root causes, we're going to make an improvement. So that's and that gemba, by going to where the work is done, that helps further break down those silos, because well, you went through that concrete wall. You can see it for yourself as a cross-functional team. I think this really increased the appetite for change. I think when people actually saw the forms that were coming in, I was like, wow, I didn't realize it would look like this. And I think that's the real value there in going to where the work is done, is we can leave those assumptions and those misperceptions behind and really create that firsthand knowledge. So Melanie, what impact did it have for the team members to see a few of these actual requests and the ordering process firsthand, and what changes were there to perceptions or beliefs?
Yeah, well, we knew the process and we had seen the data, so we had a little bit of time to sit with that surprise of how long things were taking. But to really sit and go through what Aaron at Neon was going through every day, and to see where there was missing information, where links didn't work, where people just didn't understand how to copy and paste a link into a form, where we went through a handful of them. And I think the majority had to then go back. So just seeing how many did not go through at the first pass was really frustrating to see how many of those individuals, now they had names, right? Now we knew the equipment and we saw what people weren't getting in a timely manner.
Wow, and to see that and to see names and who wasn't, what they weren't getting, and wow, that makes it real. That makes it real. Well, now that we know the root causes, now we can say the S word. Okay. We can move the improve phase, which is our fourth phase of our problem-solving methodology, and we can talk about solutions. Now, the great thing about this methodology is because it's cross-functional, we can work across those functions to brainstorm potential solutions. Need another volunteer. What's the purpose of brainstorming? What are we trying to get out of brainstorming? I hear something over here. Ideas, like one or two? Several. Okay, several ideas. Maybe it's all the same ideas, but we want some different ideas, right? And that's the great thing about having a team that's cross-functional, is because you are going to get very different ideas, and more than likely, many of them. The other thing that's great about this is that there's ownership involved, okay? People are giving those ideas and working as a team to select which solutions they want as a team. So that gets them engaged and develops that ownership. Once we've selected those solutions, well, we need an action plan. What do you think an action plan involves? Somebody help me out. What do you think? When you hear the word action plan, what do you think that involves? Goals. Okay. Oh, can you say a little louder? I'll repeat it. Actionable steps to get to your solutions. Right on. Right on. Some people will call it the WWW. It's not the World Wide Web. In this case, the what, who, and when. Okay, so what tasks need to be completed to get those solutions developed and implemented? Who's going to take the lead on each task? And when can we complete that? What's a reasonable date to complete that? But with that action plan, that gives us the ability to change, and it provides that structure so that we have not just the ability, but also the knowledge of how we're going to make that change. Very important for change management, having that ability and the knowledge how to change. Fifth phase of the Lean Six Sigma problem-solving methodology is control. Who thinks they can control anything in this world? Anybody? Good luck. Good luck. I like to use the word sustain. So if we implement a solution and make an improvement, it's sustain it. How do we sustain it? And that's where a system or a process can reinforce that change. It's part of change management, having a system or process to help reinforce that change. Some examples of how the board did this. One was with a web-based form. Okay, so they can control. They have one location for people to go to request equipment, and a form they can fill out. That's web-based. Central location. It's a standard form. What I also found interesting that they did was that they created a video to show people how to use the form. That way, if somebody new is hired, they know how to do it. Or if somebody forgets, hasn't filled one of these out in about 6 months, they know how to do that. So I'm going to take a minute here and just show you an example. I'm going to try to figure out how to use this. Let's click on that. All right.
Grammarly Go is the only generative AI product that you need.
So I have not used an Apple computer since, I've got it, don't worry, I've got it. I'm just gonna preface this, I've not used an Apple computer since maybe the 90s. And I just did something that I probably shouldn't have. I put it over on that screen and how do I get it back? All right, now I'm in a situation where I don't know. There we go. Okay, I would. All right. Yeah.
While they're working on that, I just want to talk a little bit about the videos. So the old form was a PDF, so you can see all the issues with that. The web-based form could be available on our website and Neon's website. And we were able to do some training with our internal therapists, but some of our individuals access their own therapists in the community. So we were afraid that there would be the old forms and drawers that people never get rid of and keep using. So we did send messages out to those external therapists, and we created 2 videos. One that sort of talked to our individuals and families about how we made some positive changes to the definition of equipment, to what would be reviewed, to how their therapists could access the form. And then, as Brad said, we did this sort of quick video for our therapists, and it does help our therapy supervisors and managers when they get new staff, that they can just sort of always have that as a resource.
The DD's Family Supports Program administered by Neon. This video will show you how therapists can access and complete a Cuyahoga DD equipment request form. Examples of special equipment that can be funded through Cuyahoga DD's Family Supports Program include, but are not limited to, sensory items, communication devices, therapy balls, adaptive utensils and plates, and weighted vests and blankets. Examples of items that cannot be approved for family supports funding include medical equipment, trampolines, pools, saunas, items solely for entertainment and recreational purposes, items of general utility such as dining room chairs, mattresses, and appliances, and items that are for the sole purpose of restricting movement. As you complete the equipment request form, please make sure that there is a plan for equipment setup or assembly and that it will fit into the space needed. Cuyahoga DD is not responsible for assembly or setup of equipment and will not be able to provide staff, funding, or resources for any assembly or setup. Make sure the delivery address is correct and that someone will be available to receive the equipment if necessary. Cuyahoga DD is not responsible for lost or stolen items. You can find our online equipment request form at cuyahoga.bdd.org. You will find our family supports link at the top right here. Click on Family Supports, and once the page loads, you can scroll down and see the link to our online equipment request form. The equipment request form shows a red star for information that must be completed. Once you complete the individual's information, you will see there is a box where you can upload any documents, pictures, and/or quotes for the equipment being requested. Up to 10 items can be requested per form. For each item, please enter the equipment requested, how many, the size if needed, if a color is preferred, the cost, vendor, and a web link to the item being requested. You will also need to describe why each item is recommended and how it will help the person you support. There are 3 options for obtaining the family or individual's permission to order the equipment using Cuyahoga DD Family Supports funding. They can sign and date the form if they are present. They can give verbal approval, or they can give written approval, such as via text message or email. Next, enter the delivery address for the equipment and a delivery contact person. Finally, provide your information and signature. At the bottom of the form, you have the option to print, save and come back later, or submit when completed. If you missed anything, you will receive an error message and directions on what is needed in order to submit. Once you complete and submit the equipment request form, please allow some time for us to review the request. The requesting therapist and the family will receive a confirmation email with order details. If the request is not approved, the family and the requesting therapist will receive an email with an explanation indicating why the request could not be processed. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Cuyahoga DD's Family Supports Program administered by Neon. If you have any questions, please reach out to our Cuyahoga DD Family Supports coordinators at 216-736-2947 or send an email to familysupports@cuyahoga.bdd.org.
Would you like to earn 6 figures a year writing for brands that you love? This is Kristen. She earns $140,000.
Yep. Thanks, Kristen. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So this methodology, it creates a culture of continuous improvement. Now, what you'll see on the bar on the far left, that's where we started at 17.6 days on average. After the Cuyahoga DD implemented the solutions, they went down to that middle bar, which I think is like a little over 5 days. That's a pretty big improvement there. 17 days to 5 days. Over 3 weeks to down to 1. Then something else interesting happened. And I asked Melanie, hey, can you send me some data from this winter? Where are we at now? And it's now down at like close to 2.5 days. After all the solutions were implemented, it's gotten better. So I don't know, this initial improvement, it was significant. So what type of atmosphere did this create, and what led to this further improvements in 2023?
So we were excited, very excited to see the results. I'm very proud of the work that was put in to achieving those results. My team makes fun of me because when I'm really excited, I always say I'm jazzed. So I got to be jazzed for like a week about this data. And when we got the second round of data and it was down even further, we were jazzed again. I was allowed to be jazzed again. And it's motivating. We think that we had a huge improvement initially because we put all these things in place, the online form, loosening up what specialized equipment really is, getting rid of that clinical review, making the videos, doing the training. There are multiple steps involved, but we also think that as all the therapists got trained, as we got the word out to the external therapists, as some of the families who came into the program started seeing the videos and understood how to order equipment, that some of those efforts continue to happen, and that's what got us down to those 2 to 3 days average.
So broken down silos, and just created this culture. Awesome. So cross-pollination. So from a dictionary, it's the transfer of pollen from a flower to the stigma of another flower. Functionally, new ideas, it's taking new ideas and practices from one field or discipline or context and creating new insights and understanding in another. Great thing about this methodology is it really fosters that. There's new ideas and perspectives, creates adaptability, and addresses root causes in problem solving. Also creates this innovation and creativity and this further refinement. It can be used, I'll throw out some acronyms here. I've learned a few acronyms. MUIs, have you heard one of those before? All right, so this can apply in other processes as well. MUI, behavioral health, with providers. So it's not just for special equipment in the family supports program. So Lean Six Sigma breaks down silos, and it's key because the key to that is the project team members include stakeholders across that are in those different silos, and it provides structured roles to build that community. In the team, with the team building, the techniques are cross-functional. So we get those insights from across those silos. The techniques are engage team members and empower staff. They empower people and people who do the work. It really aligns well with the ADCAR change management model, which also encourages new ideas and perspectives. And it extends into other functions and departments. It creates this culture that extends into other functions, departments, and contexts to broaden those networks and collaborative community. And it creates a culture of continuous improvement and problem solving. Melanie, would you like to share any additional thoughts or examples of the impact on silos, team building, cross-pollination, change management?
Sure. One really cool thing about our Kaizen event is we partner with our Neon Cog to administer the program for us. We're in downtown Cleveland and they're in Boardman. So this was the first time our groups were together in the same room. So that really did a lot to just us all becoming more familiar with each other, to building those relationships and strengthening those relationships. As a matter of fact, some of our friends from Neon are here today, maybe not necessarily in this room, but here at the conference. I would also say that change management and cross-pollination efforts continue at our board. We have a process at Cuyahoga DD where we track our strategic goals and our annual plans through a process called DD Stat. So this reduction of time to order equipment was actually an annual goal for us. And when you report that out to other departments and other people in the agency, they start to think about things that maybe are a little bit complicated or taking a little bit of time in the work that they're doing. And I know Brad has since been out to Cuyahoga DD 2 more times to work with other departments. So when people see success and they see something that's worked, and then they figure out how they can incorporate that into their work as well. And ultimately, all we want to do is get people what they need faster, is be less complicated, be less, I always say, government agency, right? And so in that, we really found that this process worked for us. And we know that our families and family supports are much happier. They see the difference. They're thanking our staff. They're very complimentary to the Neon staff. So that's really the end result that we wanted, and we got it.
Well, that's awesome. It's because it's all about the individuals we serve, right? That's the purpose. What questions do people have about our journey and the story?
We have a couple minutes. This would be a great opportunity to ask some questions. I had one, maybe as people get warmed up out there. I think it was in the analyze phase of the process. You referred to the 5 whys, 4 whys, 5
Yes.
whys, maybe?
Yes, 5
Maybe
whys.
talk a little bit about what that is or how we might implement it.
So with the 5 whys, it's a technique when we're trying to understand, well, what's causing this to happen? Why is this happening? And oftentimes, if you start asking why and keep asking, you'll get down to a root cause. It may take 5 times, but it'll help you get drilled down to a root cause. So why are we not able to click on this link? Oh, well, it's in a PDF form, but well, didn't somebody fill it out through PDF? Why didn't they fill it out through PDF? Oh, they printed it out and wrote it down because that was easier for them. Okay, well, we didn't need 5 whys to get to the root cause there. We have a paper form that doesn't really work very well in the digital world.
Those with kids here probably are familiar then with the 5 why and different go to bed or something like that. Other questions? Yes.
Do you mind sharing how long it took you from identifying that this was a problem, I guess, engaging with Hollingworth, and then to that, I guess, collecting that baseline data? You showed spring, fall, and winter. And so that was the kind of implementation, I assume, but how long did it kind of take at the beginning and then all the way through?
Okay, got that.
Sure. Good question.
Yes. So we did a survey with our family supports participants and families. We knew that, folks were a little bit frustrated with some of the timing of things. That was probably an early year or late year to early year event. We were working on our annual plan. So we identified this particular item as our simplification goal for my department in probably February of 22. Started talking with Brad in April-ish of 22. He and I worked together to design the baseline data that we would ask Neon to collect for at least, we said, 100 project or equipment requests. And we scheduled our first day together. It was, I think, the third week of June.
Mhm.
And then we came back together for 2 days in the middle of July and then 2 days at the end of July. We had a tight turnaround for getting some things in place. We knew 2 things were really going to impact big, and that was getting that online form and getting the training and the videos that went to it, and sort of getting something out in our materials that softened that definition of what people could get through that specialized equipment. So we were able to make those updates to our forms, to Neon forms pretty quickly, get those up on the website. We were able to work with Neon to build the online portal. What took a little bit of time was some testing and then some training of the different therapists and getting that out. But we went live in September with the new form. And we pulled our first results about a month later. So we were pretty fully implemented, I would say, by October of last year. In my department, we have not done this formally, but there are other services in our family supports program that my team has worked with Neon's team to sort of use the tools and the resources Brad gave us to do sort of a soft, soft process to do some improvements. So, and then, like I said, I think there are other departments in our agency that have formally used the Kaizen process.
So once you have the methodology, you can apply it to other problems, other challenges.
So what do you do in those cases when people print the form out? And you said it doesn't work in the digital world, but for families or whoever needs to fill that form out, if they don't have a computer or they fill it out, how does that impact the data? Because it's going to take you longer. Do you collect the data based on when you receive the forms? And then how long it takes from after you receive the forms to ordering it? Or because it may take longer if people aren't using it online? See what I'm saying?
We had a transition time to when we would no longer accept paper forms. It is typically professional staff. It is our therapists, outside therapists who are filling out the form for the families. So we felt like every one of those folks really does have access to the online form. So we really were kind of strict about cutting off or, send it back and make them do the online form. The way we measured was from the date that Neon received the form to the date they placed the order. We knew beyond placing the order, we can't control Amazon, we can't control things in stock, deliveries, things like that.
All right. Well, I think we are right on time. There's one session left after a short break, but let me thank you for your time and attention. And one more thank you to Melanie and to Brad.